Imagine trying to keep a travel diary for a trip that lasted 40 years. Not just for you, but for every single generation that was going to come after you. Well, believe it or not, in the book of Numbers, we find exactly that, a super detailed log of every single stop the people of Israel made on their epic trek from Egypt to the Promised Land. So that really begs the question, right? How do you even begin to document a journey that massive, an experience that literally forged a nation's identity in the middle of the desert? We're not just talking about a list of places here. We're talking about preserving the memory of where a people came from and the trials that made them who they are. Let's dig into how they did it. And what's amazing is, the text tells us exactly how it happened. This wasn't some kind of casual diary written down years later. No, it says right here, Moses wrote down their starting places, stage by command of the Lord. So this is an official record, meticulous, deliberate, and, divinely ordered. Every single stop was meant to be remembered. So how many stops are we talking about? 42. Let that sink in for a second. 42 different encampments over 4 decades. That number alone just gives you a sense of the incredible scale of this whole thing. And behind every one of those locations, there's a story, a challenge, a piece of their history. Okay, so this whole epic journey kind of unfolds in a few key parts. We'll start with the part everyone knows and loves, the Great Escape. This is them leaving centuries of slavery behind and heading out into the great unknown. So the itinerary kicks off at Ramesses with this triumphant departure. Then, of course, you get the absolute miracle at Pi-hahiroth, the Red Sea crossing. But look what happens right after. They get to a place called Marah, and the water is bitter. Bam. The harsh reality of the desert just slaps them in the face. And then right after that, they find Elim, a beautiful oasis. This sets up the whole rhythm of the journey. Incredible miracles, followed by brutal hardship, followed by these moments of sweet relief. So after all that initial high drama, the story shifts. The journey settles into this long, tough phase. This is what we can call the 40-year march. The daily grind. This is where an entire generation was born, lived their lives, and died in the wilderness, all while being shaped by this constant state of wandering. Now, we are not going to read all of these names, but this table gives you a feel for the bulk of the list. You just see this pattern over and over, and they set out from this place and camped at that place. And honestly, most of these are names nobody's ever heard of. But that's kind of the point. This long, repetitive list gives you the sense of the sheer length and monotony of those decades. It wasn't always about big, dramatic events. A lot of it was just about endurance, about putting one foot in front of the other year after year. And then, after decades of this, something starts to change. The journey enters its final act. The wandering part is over, and the destination is finally in sight. You can feel the pace pick up in the story. And it's marked by these huge, significant events as the new generation gets ready to claim their inheritance. Just look at this timeline. That final year, year 40, is absolutely packed. They finally arrive at Kadesh, and then a massive moment. Aaron, the high priest, dies on Mount Hor, and the year ends with the entire nation camped out in the plains of Moab, right there looking across the Jordan River at the land they've been promised. And let's talk about Mount Hor for a second, because this stop is so important. It really marks a changing of the guard. Aaron was there from the very beginning in Egypt. He represents that entire generation. And for him to die right here, on the very edge of the new land, it's this incredibly powerful symbol of transition. The past is literally being laid to rest so the future can begin. And get this, the record gives us this amazingly specific detail. 123. That's how old Aaron was when he died. It's little details like this that just remind you what kind of document this is. This isn't some vague myth. It's a chronicle, carefully preserving even these really personal details from these foundational moments. So this all brings us to the really crucial question: why? Why this incredibly detailed, exhaustive list of every single stop? Well, as we get to the end of the itinerary, the purpose becomes crystal clear. This list wasn't just about looking back at the past, it was about getting the people ready for their future. Check this out. The second the 42-stage travelogue is over, the very next verse pivots to instructions. The list ends, and God immediately tells Moses, okay, when you cross the Jordan, here's what you need to do. The itinerary basically serves as the official end of one chapter, the wandering, and it's the starting line for the next one, the conquest. It's like saying, that journey is complete, a new one starts now. Which leaves us with one last thing to think about. Is this really just a 40-year travelogue, a dry old itinerary? Or is it something much, much bigger? Maybe it's better to think of it as the birth certificate of a nation, a document that proves who they are, not because of where they were born, but because of the shared transformative journey that made them a people.